What a blessed, what a fun time we're having. And I really enjoy your remarks and your likes. I want to encourage you. You know, the woman that find the penny that was lost, she called the whole neighborhood and say, come and see. The woman who met Jesus at the well, she went to the whole village and said, come and see a man. Don't enjoy this freedom that comes to you by yourself. Take someone, send them the clip, send them, put it on your Facebook page, share it. We want this news to go viral because good news is worth to proclaim. They accuse us many times as you grace preachers, you only make people feel good. In essence, if you give good news to someone, good news cannot make you feel bad. If I tell you you've just won the lotto, 2 million, are you going to fall into depression? Jesus came to give us the gospel, and the gospel is good news. Grace is God's unmerited favor. Now, yesterday I quoted, and I went out quoting Hebrews chapter 10 and the 3 verses. So the text is saying, and I'm trying to show you today, with the time I have, that's what I want to do. I try to show you today that under the old covenant, the sacrifice the high priest had to make yearly was to remind them of the sin. But I'm going to try and let you find with me in the new covenant where there is a reminder for sin. So he says in verse 1 of Hebrews 10, the law was a shadow of the good things to come. The law is not the original, it's a shadow, it's a copy. Christ is the original. He says, can never with the same sacrifices which they offer year by year make those who approach perfect. So which means that the blood of bulls and goats were never able to remove your sin. It was only able to cover your sin. So it says, was never with these same sacrifices which they offer year by year make those who approach perfect. It then asks a question, for then would they have not ceased to offer? Meaning that if the blood of bulls and goats were able to remove your sin, you no longer have to make a sacrifice. But then he says, for the worshippers once purified would have had no more consciousness of sin. The blood of bulls and goats were able to remove your sin, you would no longer have a sin consciousness, but a righteousness consciousness. Now, whatever you've read there, if you apply that to Christ as the perfect lamb, you can reverse everything that was said. Because the blood of Christ does not cover your sin. It removes your sin. Which means then you have been perfected. You have been made right with God based on your faith. Then also the blood of bulls and goats could not give you a clean consciousness. But the blood of Christ, because it removed your sin, you are no longer supposed to have a sin consciousness, but a righteousness consciousness. But here's where the key comes. He's saying, in that sacrifice that the high priest made year by year, talking about the high priest going in once a year to make atonement for the sin of Israel, then he comes out after he sprinkled the blood on the mercy seat. He goes to the outer court, the inner court, the Holy of Holies, going through the veil. And so this is the key now. He says there was a reminder of their sin because the sacrifice needed to be repeated. But Christ is called the perfect lamb who died once for all. So if there's no longer a sacrifice, there is no longer a reminder. So now look at it. The high priest went into the temple, into the Holy of Holies. He qualified to go in because he was chosen. He qualified to come out alive because the lamb he sacrificed was not defected and was accepted. If the lamb was not accepted, he will drop dead in the presence of God. There was a rope tied to his right leg with bells. If the bells no longer ring, they know he didn't make it, he died. No one could go and fetch him. They just pull the rope and pull him out. The high priest qualified to go in because he was chosen. He qualified to come out because the lamb was accepted. So if I go into God's presence, I'm not expected. The inspection was not on the people outside, it was on the lamb inside. Christ became the perfect lamb. So if Christ is inspected on my behalf, I cannot fail. Which means my Father's presence never closed for me again. In fact, the veil was rent, not from bottom to top, but from top to bottom. If he opened the way, I cannot close it. In fact, there's a piece that is left untorn at the bottom to show you that the initiation for man's salvation to be able to go into his Father's presence was not initiated by my effort, by my works, or anything I have done or could do. It was initiated by God himself. Because when Jesus hung on the cross and he said, "It is finished," the text says the temple was rent from top to bottom. That is why when you understand God's grace and righteousness, you as a believer understand your Father's presence never closed for you. Even in your worst day, you can always run back into your Father's presence, because you do not run into your Father's presence with your righteousness. You run into your Father's presence with his righteousness. Now, in that sacrifice that they made year by year, there was a reminder of sin. Because the sacrifice had to be repeated, they were reminded of their sins. But under the new covenant, no longer repeat the sacrifice. Because under the new covenant, Jesus died once for all. And he died for my sins, past, present, and future. If he did not die for my future sin, then he's supposed to come back again and die for it. But since he paid for it in full on Calvary, there is no reminder of sin. And with that in mind, for the next 2 days that's ahead of me, I'm going to try if I can show you what does Paul means when he says in Corinthians, "He who eats or drink in an unworthily manner eats or drink judgment over himself, not discerning the Lord's body." Can a believer or must a believer be disqualified from the table? We continue tomorrow. Keep liking, keep sharing. We are having a great time together dissecting the text. God bless you.